Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back to the channel where we talk about economics and crypto and lots of other fun things. Today I want to ask the question, has Bitcoin bottomed, at least a local bottom, and see where we can go with that. But before we dive on in, do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification button as well. But without further ado, let's go ahead and dive on into this. So I did make a short form video yesterday talking about this very thing, and I want to show you a few different metrics, some similar metrics to that video, but also a few different metrics. And the first thing I talked about was a technical indicator in regards to Bitcoin's RSI. And look at these bottoms here. You can see in June, that was when Bitcoin went under $100,000. RSI bottomed out a little bit under 40. You can see that early August bottoming out with Bitcoin around 40. And you can see yesterday, today, around 40 again. And what's the deal with that? Well, just think about this. Okay, this is a general basic RSI rule. When we are in an uptrend, can be in Bitcoin or in stocks or in other cryptos. If you see the RSI hit a score on the daily time frame, a score of around 40, that is the floor. If we are in a bear market and you see the RSI get up to a score of about 60, that's the peak. That's generally the rule. That doesn't mean it has to follow that rule. I mean, you can see earlier in 2024, 2025, Bitcoin went from $108,000 down to 74. You could call that kind of a mini bear market. But even then, a lot of the times when Bitcoin hit local bottoms, the RSI dipped down to about 40. So there we go. Just something to keep in mind. Now, the question that you need to ask yourself when looking at a metric like this is this the bear market? Is this the beginning of the bear market? Was $124,000 the peak for Bitcoin? If so, then, from now on, then we should think of 40 not as a floor, just kind of in the middle of a range. But we're in August. It's August, guys. September might be rough. I wouldn't be surprised at all if there was one or two times in September when Bitcoin's daily RSI went down to 40. But for the most part, I expect us to be seeing continued swings where 40 would be the floor for Bitcoin's RSI until it's over, until Bitcoin peaks in 2025. We'll see about 2026, 2027. I do believe that the peak for this cycle is going to be closer to the next halving than the previous one. But as far as I'm concerned, this is a bottom, $112,300. And if I'm wrong, and I am talking about for this week that this would be the bottom. If I'm wrong, okay, where do we go from here? We go a little bit lower. Not that much. Risk to reward is on your side right now with Bitcoin. Another thing. So new account that I followed, I really like his stuff. Doesn't have many people, many followers. Frank A. Fetter. Frank, 6,500 followers. So this is the other thing that I shared in my short form video. Short-term holders are officially in pain. Selling coins at a loss. Investors will see that buying short-term holder blood has an impressive track record. And so let's click on this chart again. What do we see here? So we can actually see that the blood from short-term holders is actually worse than it was earlier this month with when Bitcoin went to $112,000, that there's more pain. This is a scarier dip than earlier this month. Now, as of right now, it's not as scary as June when we got under $100,000. That was a very scary moment, and it was on a Sunday, a perfect day to dump Bitcoin under $100,000. Now, it's not what it was during the peak of the tariff fears. And so, sure, we could go lower. Short-term holders could continue to sell at a loss, but I don't think that this is what we're facing next. Maybe, maybe not. I really don't think that that's what we're facing next. Probability is on our side. So just keep that in mind. Now, another thing, something that I didn't share in that video from Santiment here, retail traders have done a complete 180 after Bitcoin has failed to rally and dip below 113K. The past 24 hours have marked the most bearish sentiment seen on social media since when? Since the June 22nd fears of war caused a cascade of panic sells. So June 22nd, I've already mentioned it a couple times, Bitcoin went under $100,000 And that was the most scary moment of the third quarter. Sorry, that was the second quarter. Not of the, so I wanted to say the summer months, but I'm in the mindset. So of the summer, of the Northern Hemisphere summer, I'm always respectful to my friends who watch this in the Southern Hemisphere. But for now, I'm just going to say that was the scariest moment of the summer for the large majority of people who are alive in this world. Okay. So historically, this negative sentiment is a good thing for the patient traders who have been waiting for an opportunity to buy or add on while there is blood in the streets and fear is maximized. Markets move the opposite direction of the crowd's expectations. Keep a pulse on which way they're swinging their emotions next with this helpful chart. So a week ago at this time, it was Lambos. It was, we're going to buy beachfront property in the Maldives. And here we are a week later. And I called people out on that. I said, tomorrow, I didn't think literally tomorrow, but actually, yeah, with the day that Bitcoin hit $118,000, the very next day, people were terrified. And so here we are, the measure of fear. We have August 19, crowd gives up and begins panic selling. Good sign of actual upcoming dip bounce. June 22nd, crowd shows major fear as U.S. airstrikes Iran over conflict with Israel. Optimal dip by moment. August 18th, crowd optimistic and dip buys. Prices goes down and punishes the overeager. I actually am guilty of that. I bought a little bit the next day after the previous all-time high. But I'm holding comfortably, honestly. And I even added to some of those positions. So another thing from Frank, my new friend Frank here. I think the Bitcoin market is in a great spot. Sell side risk ratio is low. Full tank of gas. Market has fuel to trend. Implied volatility is at historic lows. Vaulted price has drifted up to 140K. So he's got 4 charts here. Sell side risk ratio. Very low. Very much in our favor. Good sign. We have choppiness index. I've never heard of the choppiness index. And okay, we have a full tank, or are we empty? There's still plenty of gas in the tank to fuel a move. On it, I'm not going to lie to you. What is the choppiness index? But let's move on. Options implied volatility. I like this. I actually very much like this. Okay, you can see. This goes back to 2021. The greed in the market. Actually, 2022. We're not seeing much volatility. It's actually at historic lows. It's at as low as 2023. What was 2023? Mid to late 2023. That was just the middle of this extremely, extremely boring stretch where Bitcoin was ranging between $25,000 and $31,000. That's where the volatility is right now. And that's a good sign that we're in a good spot. We're not from here going to see a massive market crash. It doesn't make sense. And then one more chart. We have Bitcoin price. Vaulted price is the price level where hodlers are likely to begin taking some profits. And you can see the short-term holder cost basis. That's a good level to pay attention to. I know, we did spend that time in March and April during peak fears over the tariff stuff. But you can see lots of room to the upside. In 2024, we were flirting with that level and trying to even break above that level. Not so much, but 140K, that'll be kind of on the more overheated side of things. So keep all that in mind. We're at a good point right now, at least with Bitcoin. I would not be panic selling altcoins. Well, all right, altcoins. What about altcoins? Well, here's a good sign. Do you see this candle here? Let me zoom in on that. It's a bearish engulfing candle on Bitcoin dominance. Now, I know that's probably mostly Ethereum, but this chart, if you looked at it yesterday, you might have gotten a little nervous. Bearish engulfing candle on Bitcoin dominance, not so much. I wouldn't be nervous about Bitcoin dominance going up. So that's a good sign. Ethereum seems to be bouncing back in a major way. Ethereum is 43, got under 41. Look at that. It's almost forming a bullish engulfing candle for Ethereum. That's a good sign. And do you remember I made a short form video talking about Ethereum in early 2021. So what happened with Ethereum in early 2021? It barely missed its all-time high and dumped by like 30 or 40%, something like that. This drop in Ethereum is 17%, something like that. And we're not going to dump 30 or 40%, no way. But then Ethereum just barely broke through its all-time high and then dumped another 27%. And then it took 2 weeks for Ethereum to break through and get into price discovery. So could it be that we're facing something similar this time around? I'd say it's very possible. So I think we're in good shape. But does that mean that we're absolutely going to do that? I don't know. I mean, I think we're a little shaky right now. That PPI report, man, that was so hot. That was scorching hot. That sucked. That just took a lot of wind out of our sails for sure. So I laid out my scenarios. My last video, my last long form video on this channel, I talked about 3 different scenarios. The best scenario, the best in terms of short-term pain, the least amount of short-term pain, that's invalidated. That was a bounce off the 7-year trend line. We dip below. The second scenario is in play right now, where Bitcoin would bounce off of its May 2024 peak at around $112,000. We went to 112.3, good enough in my opinion. I tend to lean towards scenario 3, though, which would be this. UT phase B, Bitcoin breaks that all-time high just barely. That's 124,000 and change. We kind of grind down. Peak fear under $110,000. So again, a local bottom right now, not, bottom for this week. Maybe in a few weeks, we would see Bitcoin go under 110 and the bears running victory laps on X saying that it's over. And then boom, very quickly we'd be off to the races flirting with the all-time high again. And then we'd get potentially to 140K like that one chart was talking about. That's my perspective right now. Now, maybe scenario 2 is in play and we're just going to put in a V-shaped recovery and we're not going to have to worry about any of this. You never know, but Bitcoin does look somewhat Wyckoff-y right now. We'll see over the last couple of weeks here. Yeah, we'll see. Wyckoff reaccumulation. I am letting the market lead me as always, and you should as well, but I don't really see much of a compelling case to be a caller of that 124 was the peak. Nah. Anyway, that's all I have for today. I hope you have a wonderful day, a wonderful rest of your week. I'll most certainly be seeing you in another video. Peace.